Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos.
The main character, after dying in his previous life, he wakes up inside Naruto and he is reborn as an Uchiha before the massacre. He has a gacha system. What is he gonna do inside of Naruto?
Naruto, building the strongest Uchiha, starting with Gacha pulls. Chapter 1, Uchiha Source. The Land of Fire, Konoha Village. A light rain was falling from the sky. On the playground of the Ninja Academy, two young boys are fighting each other, wielding kunai. The written test results are out, and you're first again, Yuan. Nara Shikaku, with a blade of grass dangling from his mouth, leaned against the railing watching the battle on the playground and casually addressed Uchiha Genji, who was eating snacks beside him. The written test only accounts for 40% of the score, so it's not a big deal. But you can always accurately control your score to 60 points. That's probably much more difficult. Uchiha Gen shook the empty snack bag and spoke, then casually took a small bag of dried fruit from Akimichi Choza's backpack. Choza Akimichi blinked his small eyes a few times, looked at the nearly empty snacks in his backpack, and fell silent. This is the graduation exam for the Ninja Academy, and it's already in its final 2 rounds. Most of the elite students are waiting here, while watching the battle between Uchiha Inahisa and Sarutobi and Jun. When they saw Uchiha Gen getting snacks from Akimichi Choza and eating them while watching, many others also went to Akimichi Choza to grab a handful of snacks like sunflower seeds and dried fruit and sat down to watch the show. Most of the Akimichi clan's ninjas are gluttons, but Akimichi Choza is gentle and doesn't mind sharing food with his comrades. The premise is that you won't go hungry. Tusk, it looks like the competition is about to end. Yan Jun should be the winner of this practical assessment. Nara Shikaku stood up from the ground and stretched. The practical assessment has ended, which means that this graduation assessment is almost over. Because of the Fourth Shinobi World War that broke out 2 years ago, even the grandson of the first Hokage, who graduated at that time, perished on the battlefield. Therefore, starting this year, in order to improve the practical combat ability of Ninja Academy students, the graduation assessment will not only test the 3 body techniques again, but will also use the results of practical combat exercises as the standard for scoring. It's hard to say. That kid Daehyo has something up his sleeve. Uchiha Gen popped a raisin into his mouth. Currently, the one with the upper hand is Sarutobi Jun, the eldest son of the Sarutobi clan. However, Uchiha Gen knows that during the winter break this year, Uchiha Inaheim learned a C-rank ninjutsu at the Uchiha clan's academy. The resources available to ninja clan members are far superior to those available to ordinary ninjas. The Uchiha clan, as the most prestigious clan in the current ninja world, also has its own unique educational system. Clan schools are generally used to lay a foundation for children who haven't yet entered ninja academies, but they are also open to clan members who are still ninja trainees during the winter and summer vacations each year. It's almost like a holiday cram school, in order to prevent any student in the clan from having poor grades and bringing shame to the clan. Uchiha Inahisa has excellent grades, and her overall abilities give her a chance to compete for first place among this year's ninja trainees. In addition, she has a Jonin father who has awakened the Sharingan with 3 Tomo. At this stage, the educational resources she can obtain are no worse than anyone else's. Even though Sarutobi Jun was the eldest son of the 3rd Hokage, it didn't matter. As for the source, he is rather special. In terms of innate talent, he felt that he could only be considered above average. However, because he was a transmigrator, he matured earlier and accumulated a certain advantage when he first entered the Ninja Academy. With the training of the Uchiha clan school, although the resources were not as good as those of Inahisa and Yanjin, He was not too far behind others in this elite class full of second-generation ninjas. With the help of his golden finger, a special ability or advantage, he was able to maintain his position in the top 3 of the class, not much worse than Daehyo and the others. As for why it's only a small help. Character name, Uchiha Gen. Character level, 8. Currently loading character card, Sakura Haruno, Ninja Academy. Currently available item cards, none. Available card draw attempts, 0. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, 5 Chinese letter, 4 Chinese letter, 4 Chinese letter, 4 Chinese letter, 5 Chinese letter, 4 Chinese letter, 5 Chinese letter, 6 Chinese letter, 37. The system's greatest help to Uchiha Gen was this Sakura Haruno character card he obtained through a gacha pull. Although most of the abilities that Gen possesses have surpassed those of Sakura Haruno from the era represented by this character card. However, this character card still solidified his foundation, giving him comprehensive qualities no less than those of Uchiha Inahashi and Sarutobi Enjun. Furthermore, the card's greatest use is Sakura's almost superhuman grasp of basic knowledge, which allows Uchiha Gen to consistently achieve near-perfect scores and take first place in every written test. Yes, Yuan has a system on him, and he is quite familiar with this system because he developed many of its functions. Before he transmigrated, the mobile game based on the Naruto IP developed and operated by his company was very popular. Even though the potato server would occasionally malfunction, it still frequently topped the revenue charts thanks to the players' enthusiasm. So the company started a breeding model, trying to replicate this successful experience. On the one hand, it invested real money to develop similar games based on other IPs, and on the other hand, it continued to cultivate the Naruto IP and developed a card game. As an employee of the latter project, Uchiha Gen participated in the production of many game content settings. However, when the game was still a half-finished product, he stumbled upon the ninja world on his way to work. The unfinished games on his work laptop also came over and became part of his operating system. Because it's a work in progress, the gameplay is still quite rough, with only the basic upgrade and card drawing mechanics being established. Besides the character cards that have already been produced, the prize pool also contains a lot of items, some good and some bad, but the probability of getting them is not very high. This is obviously to force players to spend money. To get a chance to draw cards besides leveling up, you naturally have to participate in events and gameplay that require spending money. Their company's games are all about making money to become stronger. Unfortunately, apart from this part, the rest of the content has not been completed yet. Even the experience required to upgrade the system has only been implemented as a function that rewards experience through tasks. Fortunately, Uchiha Gen discovered that missions issued by the Konoha village government could also earn experience points. Even the practical training, monthly exams, and final exams at the Ninja Academy could be counted as missions, although the rating was very low, only E rank. The battle is about to be decided. A brown-haired boy with a perpetually stern face suddenly spoke up. His name is Kurama Konjian, and he is a member of the Kurama clan. Not only Kurama Murakumo noticed it, but many of the other students present also noticed it. Because the two sides competing in the playground had distanced themselves, their hands were rapidly forming hand seals. Fire release, great fireball technique. Bright flames shot out from Uchiha Inahai's mouth, illuminating his young face in a crimson glow. Meanwhile, Sarutobi Enjun on the opposite side finished his hand seals and unleashed a fireball into the air. Fire release, flame bullet. Chapter 2, Konoha needs a new Uchiha mirror. He actually learned a C-rank ninjutsu before graduating from the Ninja Academy, and his proficiency seemed quite high. He was no longer a beginner and had reached a level where he could integrate it into actual combat. Two blazing fireballs collided violently in the center of the playground. The Chunin examiner panicked and tried to stop him, but was held down by a strong hand. "It's all right, Chunin Menga, I'm here. Nothing will happen." A big-nosed Jonin appeared beside the proctor, Mengna, at some point, looking down at the battlefield below. The latter finally breathed a sigh of relief. "That makes sense. The Hokage son is right here. There must be someone watching over him. How could anything possibly happen? So you're here too, Jonin with the offensive sword." "Thank goodness." Chunin Mengna sat back down. As expected of the Hokage son and a genius of the Uchiha clan, they both learned such powerful ninjutsu before even graduating. "If you weren't here, I don't know how I would have stopped them." Looking at the two young people still locked in a stalemate, Chunin Mengna sighed and said to Kojimatsu, "A genius from the Uchiha clan. Wasn't it said that the Uchiha clan had two geniuses this year? Where's the other one? Hey, over there, his name is Uchiha Gen. He always gets near-perfect scores on written tests and always comes in first place. His practical combat skills are no worse than Yan Jun's, but it seems he's still a bit behind now, since they all know such powerful ninjutsu." Mengna pointed to Uchiha Gen, who was sitting under the tree. Mokumu Kodo followed that direction and saw that Uchiha Gen was talking to his classmate next to him, and the people around him did not seem to dislike this Uchiha. Just like the information given by the third Hokage, this Uchiha has a relatively mild personality and is not as arrogant as other genius ninjas from the Uchiha clan. He seems to be easy to get along with. Mokumo Kodo glanced at Uchiha Gen, then at Sarutobi Enjo, and nodded almost imperceptibly while pondering something. In another day, these two men will become his subordinates. Koto was both satisfied and troubled by the two genin that the third Hokage had assigned to him. As a confidant of the third Hokage, Koto was well aware that the internal structure of this graduating genin squad had a certain political significance. Sarutobi Enjun is the son of the third Hokage, making him a direct descendant of the Hokage lineage. Given his good aptitude, he has a high probability of becoming one of the core figures of the future Hokage lineage. The Uchiha clan remained outside the upper echelons of Konoha. Although they were powerful and influential, their conflict with the village intensified after the deaths of the second Hokage and Kagami Uchiha. Although it's just a small beginning now, if left unchecked, it might cause trouble in a few years. Therefore, before that, the third Hokage needed to cultivate a new Uchiha Kagami to serve as a bridge between the Konoha leadership and the Uchiha clan. First, the Uchiha needed to have a certain level of talent, or at least not too bad. After growing up, they needed to have enough strength to gain enough influence within the Uchiha clan. Secondly, there were also requirements regarding their personality. At the very least, one must have the potential to be influenced by the will of fire in order to become one of the Hokage's allies. Because of the education and personality he received in his previous life, Gen Uchiha was chosen even though he only exhibited the social habits of an ordinary person. In the original timeline, Obito Uchiha, a passionate young man, might have joined Team Minato for similar reasons. Obito graduated at the age of 9, became a Chunin at the age of 11, and learned the great fireball technique, which is enough to show that he was quite talented. He could at least be considered a minor genius. Even if he was the worst student, he was still the worst student in the elite class. He just seemed weak because he wasn't very smart. "Is there another one, Ruri Yuzuki?" Mokumu pointed his sword at a pretty girl in the crowd with soft purple hair. That was the last member of his squad. Mengna explained. Yes, that's Ruri Yuzuki. She ranked 5th in the written test and 4th in the practical assessment. She has a bright future ahead of her. This class has special political significance. Just like how the pig, deer, and butterfly are bound to be in the same class, there's no need to worry about average grades. So the remaining person can't be too bad, and it's best if they also have the ability to harmonize the team. During the conversation, the battle between Sarutobi Enjun and Uchiha Inahisa had also ended. In the end, Sarutobi Enjun emerged victorious. His fireball successfully overwhelmed Uchiha Inahisa's great fireball, and while the latter dodged, he launched a pursuit and ultimately defeated her. Damn it! Uchiha Inahime slammed her fist on the floor, glared fiercely at Sarutobi Enjun, and then looked at Uchiha Gen. He had originally hoped to win this competition, then defeat Uchiha Gen in a fair and square manner, and become the top graduate of this year's class, so as to tell everyone that he was the stronger one among the Uchiha geniuses of this generation. He practiced ninjutsu hard for this purpose, but still lost. Phew, that was tough, Yuan. Now it's your turn to compete against me. Sarutobi Enjun, who had defeated Uchiha Inahime, looked at Uchiha Gen with an excited expression. You should take a break first. Besides, Inahisa has already forced you to use all the ninjutsu you know. With the information leaked, are you sure you can still beat me? Gen Uchiha swallowed the last raisin and said to Enjun Sarutobi. Although Uchiha Inahime lost to Sarutobi Enjun, his skills were actually quite good, and the latter must have expended a great deal of energy. It's okay. Didn't you just spar with Leoli? I just need to rest for 15 minutes. As Sarutobi Enjun spoke, he couldn't help but glance at the purple-haired girl. Leoli is really pretty. Looking at Sarutobi Enjun's lecherous expression, Uchiha Gen immediately understood that this guy wanted to show off in front of his crush and might even want to beat him up. Because in the recent combat exercise, it was I who defeated Ruri Yuzuki. It's okay. I'll wait for you until you're fully recovered. Uchiha Gen spoke up. Sorry, Hayabusa, but for the sake of my experience points, I'll have to make you lose face in front of the goddess. Sarutobi Enjun quenched his thirst with a sip of the bright orange drink in his cup, then took a refined soldier's ration pill sold by the Nara clan to restore his chakra. Like a monkey, he couldn't wait to run back to the center of the training ground and form the opposing hand seal with Uchiha Gen. Unbeknownst to anyone, the Tsunabu Menga had reappeared on the field and swung her raised arm. The competition begins. Clang! In an instant, the sound of kunai clashing with shuriken rang out. In the distance, on the stands, Mokyum Kodo watched the contest with one hand behind his back. Meanwhile, in the Hokkage's office, the third Hokkage picked up his pipe and watched this scene through a crystal ball. Chapter 3 Item Cards, Skill Proficiency Cards. The shuriken spun like windmills, creating a dazzling spectacle. Sarutobi Enjun, wielding a kunai, moved with the agility of a monkey, dodging and weaving, occasionally swinging his kunai to cut the elastic threads attached to the back of his shuriken. The Uchiha-style shuriken are renowned. In the sparring session with Uchiha Inahisa just now, the latter also demonstrated shuriken throwing skills that were no less than those of Uchiha Gen. Sarutobi Enjun was naturally on guard against this move. Uchiha Gen, Sarutobi Enjun, and Uchiha Inahisa form the iron triangle of this year's competition. Their strength is comparable, and they are almost always the opponents in every practical test. They are very familiar with most of each other's techniques. What he needs to do is maintain his rhythm, find an opportunity, and unleash a ninjutsu powerful enough to seal the victory in a battle at this level. In the last, final exam's practical exercise, Gen Uchiha did not demonstrate the ability to use a ninjutsu of the level of Fireball Jutsu. If he hadn't mastered this kind of ninjutsu during this time, like his clansman Inahai, then he would definitely have won the top spot this time. Even if Gen also learns it, Sarutobi and Jun is still confident of winning. In any case, the advantage lies with him. In the distance, Akamichi Choza curiously opened Sarutobi and Jun's water glass. This is a beverage I've never seen before, and it smells and tastes different too. Choza Akamichi dipped his chubby finger into the yellowish-orange liquid in the glass, put it in his mouth and sucked on it, then opened his mouth and spat it out. This tastes awful. It's just oil. Uchiha Inahisa, who had stepped down to rest, heard Choza's voice and immediately leaned over to take a sniff. His expression immediately turned somewhat unpleasant. It really is oil. No wonder. It turns out that he had oil in his mouth, and it was specially refined oil, which made the flame Falcon's fire release more powerful and durable than Inahisa's. However, apart from the first time he used it in actual combat, it would be difficult to find an opportunity to drink oil at other times. Kurama Murakumo looked at Sarutobi and Jun's bottle and said, "Not necessarily. When actually carrying out a mission, there will definitely be teammates to help hold them back, so there will be some opportunities. I just don't know how Yan Jun came up with such a bad idea." Nara Shikaku, with his legs crossed and hands behind his head, leaned against the trunk of a large tree, looking quite relaxed. Uchiha Inahai said, in a deep voice, "Judging from the source, I'm going to lose. I sparred with him once at the clan's training ground half a year ago. Although he also learned the great fireball technique, his mastery of fire release is probably a bit worse than mine. His ninjutsu was taught by his Jonin father, who was proficient in fire release, nature transformation, and its power has increased significantly compared to half a year ago. No matter how solid Uchiha Gen's foundation was, given his talent, which he had previously displayed to everyone as being on par with his own, there was absolutely no way he could surpass him in such a short time without the guidance of a powerful fire release ninja. Unfortunately, Gen Uchiha was the one who had an overpowered advantage. He had already accumulated enough experience to level up to level 8 at the beginning of the semester and had drawn an item card. Item card, skill proficiency card, green. Can be used on ninjutsu that you have already mastered and can improve your proficiency in that ninjutsu to a certain extent during the next month of training. Bang! Uchiha Gen had used up most of his ninja tools, and Sarutobi and Jun, after expending a great deal of energy, finally managed to get close to Gen through agility and movement. His taijutsu skills are recognized as the strongest in the class, even surpassing the other two Uchiha. Sarutobi and Jun needs to find the right moment to release his ninjutsu, and also close the distance to ensure that his opponent cannot escape the range of his ninjutsu. Because he can only hold a mouthful of oil, if it doesn't work the first time, the power of his fire release technique will drop a notch when he uses it again. He must use his slight advantage in physical skills to create this opportunity after closing the distance. Clang! The kunai collided, producing a crisp and pleasant sound like metal clashing. Feeling the force coming from the kunai's handle, Uchiha Gen took a step back to dissipate the force. At the same time, he pulled another kunai from his ninja tool pouch with his left hand, hooked his index finger into the round hole at the end of the kunai's long handle, and lightly rotated it a few times to generate centrifugal force and increase its power. Then he flicked his wrist and threw it out. This kunai throwing technique isn't very powerful and has little lethality at long range, but it's sufficient in close combat and is more concealed. Sarutobi and Jun was already on guard, so he withdrew his hand, turned around, and dodged the kunai. Uchiha Gen took advantage of this opportunity, stepped forward, turned around, and raised his leg for a side kick. Bang! A little dust rose as Sarutobi Enjun crossed his arms in front of him to block the attack, then quickly retreated while forming hand seals. This is a perfect opportunity to launch a ninjutsu attack, switch from defense to offense, and secure victory in one fell swoop. However, this opportunity was also created by Gen Uchiha to use ninjutsu. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Fire release, great fireball technique. A fireball, twice the size of the one Uchiha Inaheim had used before, shot out from Uchiha Gen's mouth, carrying immense power as it hurtled towards Sarutobi Enjun. Compared to the latter, the fireball is like a table tennis ball compared to a tennis ball. Although their diameters are within the same order of magnitude, Gen Uchiha's great fireball is significantly larger. Boom! Endless light and heat erupted from the two fireballs, and under the intense heat, beads of sweat quickly appeared on Sarutobi Enjun's forehead. This power is far beyond what a Ninja Academy student could wield. In the Hokkage's office, Hiruzen Sarutobi put down his pipe, squinted, and stared at the great fireball released by Gen Uchiha in the crystal ball. As a top-tier ninjutsu master who is proficient in all 5 elemental ninjutsu, he can tell from the shape and color of this fireball that it does not involve the nature transformation of fire-style ninjutsu, and its form is not particularly outstanding. This is normal. After all, he is just a Ninja Academy student who is about to graduate as a genin. It would be strange if he actually mastered the nature transformation at the jonin level. But this also shows how rare it is. This ninjutsu talent is probably not much worse than Orochimaru's back then. Hiruzen Sarutobi stroked his thick beard. Such talented Uchiha clan members must be brought into the Hokkage lineage, influenced, and turned into one of our own. Otherwise, if an uncontrollable Uchiha were to emerge, he might one day become the second Madara. We must strengthen his connection with the Hokkage lineage. Gongdao should understand what I mean, and his abilities are sufficient. However, if we want to deepen the bond between Uchiha Gen and the Hokkage lineage, it seems we still need to find a different candidate. Chapter 4 Assessment, Task, Settlement. Hiruzen Sarutobi pondered for a moment and realized that there were only a few people he could actually choose from. Let's shift our perspective back to the Ninja Academy's training ground. Sarutobi Enjun is about to give up. With the help of oil, his fireballs were able to hold their own against Uchiha Gen for a few breaths at the beginning. However, he could only hold a mouthful of oil, and once that mouthful was exhausted, the power of his fireballs plummeted, and he was quickly overwhelmed by the great fireball. Just as Mokumo Kodo, hiding in the distant stands, was about to intervene to save Sarutobi Enjun, Uchiha Gen proactively strengthened his control over his ninjutsu, reducing the power of the great fireball jutsu. This level of chakra control is enough to demonstrate the profound mastery of this ninjutsu by Gen. After the fireball dispersed the flame projectiles, it gradually shrank a bit and then scattered under the control of the source. The powerful shockwave sent Sarutobi Enjun flying, and then several shuriken tied with elastic steel wires flew out and pinned to his side, trapping his torso, arms, and legs. You lost, Flame Falcon. Uchiha Gen walked up to Sarutobi Enjun and said with a smile, "The rewards for this graduation assessment will definitely far surpass those for previous midterms and finals exams, and the experience gained will certainly be much greater. Based on past experience, those who achieve first place in the graduation assessment gain significantly more experience than those who rank second or third, potentially allowing them to advance to the next level and earn a chance to draw a card. Why is your fire release technique so powerful?" Sarutobi and Jun said in a way that was beyond comprehension. Of course it's from practice. Did you think I get some kind of magical teachings from the sage of 6 paths in my dreams while I'm sleeping? Gen Uchiha removed the net and reached out to pull Sarutobi and Jun up. He did train hard, but he trained with cheat codes. Sarutobi and Jun scratched his head in frustration. Why can't he master it? He was clearly very hardworking. When I get back, I'll have to get my father, who's the Hokage, to show me some real skills. The live fire exercise has concluded, and both sides have signed the seal of reconciliation. As the Chunin Mona's voice rang out, Gen Uchiha extended his hand and formed a reconciliation seal with Enjun Sarutobi. Then they walked side by side toward the crowd. Yuan. That move was so cool. As expected of Yuan, the second most handsome man in the class after me. Shaija, you've really lost all shame. As soon as the two stepped off the stage, a crowd gathered around them. For a group of Ninja Academy students who weren't even genin yet, today's 2 battles were quite an eye-opener for some of them. You mastered all your ninjutsu by yourself. Uchiha Inaheim forced a calm expression as she spoke to Jen, though her eyes held a complex look. The opponent's ninjutsu level was clearly a level higher than his and Sarutobi and Jun's. Even if the latter used tricks, he was still no match for Uchiha Gen. Then he would have even less chance of defeating Uchiha Gen. Not entirely. Gen Uchiha shook his head. Inahiko was taken aback, then heard Uchiha Gen continue. There is a spiritual practice notebook left by my father before his death. Although there is still a lot of content in it that I can't understand now, it has still helped me a lot. Seeing Uchiha Gen's deeply moved expression, Uchiha Inahai felt a pang of guilt, but still stubbornly insisted. Next time, my ninjutsu will be stronger than yours, so don't disappoint me then. Then I'll wait. Gen Uchiha reached out his hand towards the fire. The latter hesitated for a moment, but still gave Yuan a high five. If it were anyone else, the fire would have been ignored and walked away, but Yuan. He is different. Next time, you'll have to beat me first, Inahashi. Sarutobi and Jun casually patted Uchiha Inaheim on the shoulder. HMPH, you know perfectly well how you beat me this time. Although oil isn't among the ninja tools prohibited in the assessment, if you want to become a true strongman, you can't keep using these little tricks. You have a point, but I'll definitely win next time. Sarutobi and Jun scratched his head and gave a perfunctory reply, but his attention was quickly drawn to Yuzuki Ruri, who was walking towards them. He eagerly followed her and became her devoted admirer. Not far away, the proctor, Mengna, had already arranged the order according to the scores registered on the form. This graduation assessment has successfully concluded, and all members of this class have passed. Next, please come up on stage, according to your ranking, to receive your ninja headbands after the results are read out. First place, Uchiha Gen, 100 points in written test, 100 points in practical assessment, and 100 points in overall score. Second place, Sarutobi and Jun, with a written test score of 97, a practical assessment score of 99, and an overall score of 98. Third place, Uchiha Inahai, 98 points in the written test, practical test. After Mengna finished reading out the results, Uchiha Gen was the first to step onto the stage and receive his ninja headband. Congratulations, Gen. You will definitely become an excellent ninja and contribute to the village in the future. I will, Ms. Mengna. Gen Uchiha nodded slightly, took the ninja headband with both hands, stepped off the stage, and tied the headband to his forehead. From this moment on, he was a formally registered Konoha ninja. In the system panel, the exclamation mark on the taskbar has changed from white to a rich gold. Special E-Rank mission. Graduation assessment. Mission completed. Task submitted. Settlement in progress. Settlement rating, S. Experience points being awarded. Current character level, 9. Available card draw attempts, 1. Looking at the updated data on the system panel, a smile appeared on Uchiha Gen's face. Great, I can draw cards again. Meanwhile, in the Hokage's office, looking through the crystal ball at Saru Tobai and Jun, who had received the Konoha ninja headband after Uchiha Gen, the third Hokage also had a gratified smile on his face. Although he didn't win first place, the third Hokage could still see how outstanding his son was. Perhaps in the future, under his guidance, Saru Tobai and Jun might become a cage-level powerhouse. Who knows, this kid might have a chance to take over the mantle of Hokage. Hiruzen Saru Tobai touched the Hokage hat on his head and looked at a standing photo frame on the table. The photo in the frame is a group photo of him with his 3 disciples when they were still young. Orochimaru is his preferred candidate for the 4th Hokage, so if Jun has the opportunity to compete for the 5th Hokage in the future. Hiruzen Saru Tobai glanced at a form on his desk outlining the selection of Jonin, senior ninja, to lead newly graduated genin, and crossed out the name of Koto Mokyume in the first row. Yorin, go and call Orochimaru over. Yes, Lord Third Generation. From the shadows, an ANBU ninja wearing an animal mask appeared and vanished in an instant before the third Hokage. Chapter 5, Uchiha Mikoto. As soon as you leave the Ninja Academy, you can see a huge crowd of parents waiting outside, which looks quite similar to the grand scene at the entrance of the college entrance examination in my previous life. There are actually quite a few students at the Ninja Academy, at least several hundred per class, and even more parents waiting outside. In the original timeline, Kakashi told Naruto that each class of students only had 20 or 30 people, and 2/3 of them would be sent back. In reality, if it were just this many people each year, Konoha would only have a few hundred or 1,000 people at most, and would have been wiped out by other ninja villages long ago. Just Iwagakure alone could muster 10,000 people to kill the third Raikage. As the leader of the 5 great ninja villages, Konoha's number of ninjas could not be much different from other ninja villages, and might even be more. These 20 or 30 people are basically members of the elite class, with some from other classes as well. Regardless of their background, these people are either the best of the best or top-tier second-generation ninjas, and they will all be led by Jonin after graduation. Because of their talent or family background, their future prospects are bound to be much brighter than other ninjas. They are all potential Jonin, and only such people will be chosen by Konoha to have a few Jonin serve as their instructors each year. Jonin are extremely valuable and powerful combat forces. Even the election of Hokage requires voting among Jonin, who hold a high political status. Not every ninja student is worthy of being led by a Jonin as soon as they graduate. If these supervising Jonin think you're capable, then follow their lead. If they think you're not, then you'll be demoted 1 rank and replaced with another special Jonin or Chunin. The latter is the norm for most ninja trainees after graduation. Some of the better ones are guided by a special Jonin. These people who can become special Jonins have at least one special skill and have reached the Jonin standard in some aspects. However, if the instructor ninja leading the team is only a Chunin, then they will mostly be cannon fodder on the battlefield. Uchiha Inahisa and Uchiha Gen were walking toward their clan's territory, as usual, when a tall, thin, middle-aged man with long hair appeared in front of them. His name is Uchiha Nobuyuki, a Konoha Jonin, the vice-captain of the police force squad and also Inahisa's father. It seems your graduation exam results weren't very good this time. Inahisa, who had always been arrogant at the Ninja Academy, lowered her head. Who is number 1? Dao Huo looked towards Yuan beside him. Congratulations, Jen. Taki would be very happy if he knew how outstanding you are now. Shinji's expression softened somewhat when he looked at Yuan, though he still appeared quite serious. Uchiha Taki was the father of this body, who had died in battle during a mission to capture spies from an enemy village before he transmigrated into this body. Thank you for your praise, Uncle Shinyu. However, Inahisa's performance was also excellent. In the future, he will surely become a powerful Uchiha, just like you, Uncle. Uchiha Gen said politely to Shinji. That's not enough. If he wants to become a stronger Uchiha than his father, he needs to do more. Uchiha Nobuyuki shook his head and continued to ask Inahisa. So, are you second or third this time? Inahisa, Sarutobi and Jun, and Gen, during their years at the Ninja Academy, their grades consistently remained in the top 3. Third, Sarutobi and Jun put a mouthful of oil in his mouth before the match to increase the power of his fire release technique, so. Losing is losing, there's nothing to say. However, losing to the Hokage son and a clansman who performed better is understandable and doesn't disgrace the clan's reputation. This afternoon, come with me to the clan storehouse to select ninjutsu. The Uchiha clan, as a top-tier clan in the ninja world, has been powerful for over 1,000 years. Clan members generally have no shortage of good ninjutsu to learn. As long as they reach a certain ninja level, such as being promoted from Genin to Chunin, or advancing from 2-tomo Sharingan to 3-tomo Sharingan, they are qualified to enter the clan's ninjutsu library to select some ninjutsu. Yes, father. Yuan, I was going to ask you to come with me to the clan storehouse to give you some advice on choosing ninjutsu, but I saw the eldest elder's granddaughter on the way here. She must be here to see you, so I won't presume to do it for you. Uchiha Nobuyuki turned to look at the intersection. A pretty, black-haired girl walked briskly from there, her eyes smiling. A bright red ribbon was tied around her long, high ponytail. She wore a green Konoha ninja vest over a light blue short shirt embroidered with the Uchiha clan crest. Her beautiful legs were snow-white, slender and straight, yet healthy and strong. Clean white leggings were wrapped around her calves, and her figure appeared even taller thanks to her blue combat boots. This girl is Uchiha Mikoto. Gen Uchiha recognized the girl's identity at a glance. As they were from the same clan, he naturally knew Makoto. Back then, Makoto was his senior at the Ninja Academy, 3 years his senior. Miss Sakani. Yuan and Daehyeo said in unison. Hello, Uncle Zinjai, Cousin Daehyeo, and Yuan. The girl smiled gently at the 3 of them and bowed slightly. Uchiha Shinji began. Mikoto, you must be here on behalf of Elder Daijin, right? Yes, Grandpa had long heard of the new genius in the clan. Today happens to be the graduation day of the Ninja Academy, so he specially asked me to invite Brother Yuan to our home for a chat. Uchiha Gen is the current Grand Elder of the Uchiha clan, second only to the clan head, Uchiha Hisasu. He is in charge of enforcing clan rules and managing the overall planning and distribution of clan public resources, as well as education and inheritance. In other words, he manages the clan's archives and academy. As a newly born genius of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Gen naturally cannot avoid the role of the Grand Elder. Then I'll take my leave with Dao Hua. Yuan, if you need any help, just let me know. There's no need to be so polite with the Grand Elder. Uchiha Shinji waved to Makoto and Gen, then led Inahisa away. Zyro Yuan, shall we go? Mikoto Uchiha smiled, her clear gaze naturally falling on the boy in front of her. His face was clean, his skin was fair, and he still had a bit of baby fat. He was young, obviously just starting to develop, but his features were handsome and well-proportioned, exuding a vigorous and spirited air. This is the expression of someone with a positive mindset and confidence in their future. Having a pendant on your body will naturally give you more confidence than others. At first glance, it exudes a youthful vibe. Okay, Mikoto ni. Gen Uchiha and Mikoto walked side by side on the streets of Konoha. The faint fragrance of the girl's hair wafted into their noses, and her eyes were somewhat vacant, as if she were lost in thought. However, in reality, he devoted some of his energy to the system. Originally, Yuan planned to go home, bathe, burn incense, and pay respects to Buddha, Guanyin, the three pure ones, and the six immortals before participating in the lottery. Chapter 6: Skill Learning Cards. However, since I had to go to the Grand Elder's place right now, and then I would probably have to go to the clan's treasury to choose ninjutsu, it would probably take a lot of time, so I decided to use the card draw opportunity on the way. System extraction in progress. Obtained skill learning card, green. Skill learning card, green, description. With a complete training method and corresponding chakra attribute, this skill card can be used to quickly learn the skill within a 24-hour training period. Green quality is only effective for techniques of difficulty level C and below. Shibda. A hint of joy immediately appeared in Uchiha Gen's eyes. So far, in 9 card draws, he has only gotten 2 green cards. As the game's planner, he knew that the prize pool was tiered. We should encourage players to spend money, but we should also give ordinary players some incentives so they have something to strive for. Otherwise, if a game is full of whales, players who spend money on the game, and there are no ordinary players to showcase the difference and provide a leaderboard for whales, their sense of superiority and enjoyment will naturally decline. If they can get everything just by spending money, these whales will quickly abandon the game because of the loneliness and invincibility of the experts and move on to another game. Therefore, a mechanism is needed that can extend the player's game cycle and allow skilled players among ordinary players to narrow the gap with whales. In this game, the mechanism is that the quality of the gacha pool is linked to the player's level. At Yuan's current level, there are only 2 quality cards in the card pool. Only when the level increases to a certain level will higher quality cards be unlocked, and the drop rate of some quality cards will also increase accordingly. One type is the white card, which played a significant role during the Ninja Academy period. For example, there's the character card of Sakura Haruno, as well as the shuriken, kunai, and wire traps she used. The other option is the green card you just drew. The drop rate for this type of card is only 10% at the current stage. Although there will be a guaranteed character card on the 10th draw, according to the probability statistics, he can only get a maximum of 2 green cards by level 10. But this time, the shipment actually went through, which made Uchiha Gen very excited. He remembered that 3 years ago, he had also drawn a white skill learning card, which could be used on spells of difficulty level D and below. He used it on his shuriken-wielding skills that time. You seem a little distracted, but also quite happy. At the entrance to the clan's territory, in front of a gate resembling a torii gate, Uchiha Mikoto looked at Uchiha Gendo with her large, clear black and white eyes. Yes, after all, we're graduating today, and starting tomorrow, we'll be living a completely different life than we have in the past few years. Uchiha Gen, without concealing his expression, addressed Uchiha Mikoto. Actually, life will only be harder after graduation than before. You have to train, become stronger, carry out missions, participate in wars, witness bloodshed and sacrifice, understand what is precious, and understand the meaning of loss for the sake of your family's honor and the village's orders. The latter turned his head to look at the bustling street in the distance at midday and murmured softly. As the granddaughter of the Uchiha clan's elder, She was also strictly disciplined from a young age and could hardly relax for a single day. But aren't the ninjas doing all this for the sake of what's right now? Gen Uchiha smiled and gave Makoto a sip of chicken soup. A prosperous clan, a peaceful village, children who can grow up strong. Isn't that the meaning of a ninja's struggle? Mikoto Uchiha was slightly taken aback, then blinked and smiled faintly. You're right, Zairoyuan, all right, we're here. Mikoto Uchiha stopped and stood with Gen Uchiha in front of a spacious courtyard. Push open the heavy door and step inside. Several bonsai trees were placed on both sides of the brick-paved ground, and the Uchiha clan's red and white fan emblem was tattooed on the dark high wall. Near the main house is a neat wooden corridor. To the left of the corridor is a wide brick and stone floor with training equipment such as dummies and targets, resembling a small private training ground. Gurgle. The sound of the door being pulled open rang out. Grandpa, I brought Yuan back. Come in. An aged voice echoed inside the room. Come over. Makoto waved to Gen. Gen Uchiha took off his shoes and followed Makoto inside. The living room, which also serves as the dining area, is located behind the entryway. An elderly man, dressed in a grey kimono, knelt before a low table. Wisps of smoke drifted out through the cracks in the latticed door, and a middle-aged woman wearing an apron peeked out from inside, holding a spatula in her hand. Oh, Mikoto's back. We have guests too. Would you like to stay for lunch? Mom, this is Gen Uchiha, the top student in the Ninja Academy this year. Uchiha Mikoto introduced herself to her mother. Is it Jan? Is it Taki's child? I haven't seen you for years. You've grown so much. The last time I saw you, you were just a baby. Mikoto's mother placed a bowl of fish soup on the table and sat down, setting out the bowls and chopsticks. You just came from the Ninja Academy, so you probably haven't had lunch yet. Let's sit down and have a meal together. Mika's cooking is pretty good. Gen Uchiha nodded slightly to Gen Uchiha, gesturing for him to sit down. Thank you for your hospitality, Elder Kshuan, Aunt Maxia, and Sister Makin. I won't stand on ceremony then. After the meal, Uchiha Gen invited Makoto and Gen to walk in the corridor outside to digest their food. Uchiha Gen followed behind this powerful second-in-command of the clan and saw Makoto give him a wink. What does that look mean? Uchiha Gen was slightly taken aback, and just then the first elder spoke slowly. Yuan, in the eyes of a young, up-and-coming ninja like yourself, what should the relationship between your clan and the village be like? Gen Uchiha immediately understood Makoto's hint. This must be part of the reason why Uchiha Gen summoned him. He needed to know what this promising new generation genius thought about this issue. Since Madara left, the relationship between the clan and the village has always been the main conflict facing the Uchiha clan. After considering it for a while, Gen Uchiha tried his best to answer the elder's question from the perspective of the Uchiha clan. The Uchiha and Senju clans were the founders of Konoha, and the Uchiha clan, which is in charge of the police force, is also the most important and inseparable part of Konoha. The clan needs to stick together with the village in order to continue to ensure safety in the chaotic world and continue the glory of the #1 clan in the ninja world. The village also needs the support of the Uchiha clan's strength in order to resist other powerful ninja villages. Chapter 7, Q&A. You slippery brat. What I want to hear is not this kind of answer that doesn't offend anyone. What I want is your answer, not a formulaic reference. Gen Uchiha turned around, his calm yet sharp eyes staring straight at Gen Uchiha. Even without activating the Sharingan, those aged yet wise eyes still seem to possess a power to see through people's hearts. Elder, am I wrong? No, you're absolutely right. That is indeed the ideal state for the relationship between the family and the village. We are interdependent, complementary, and indispensable to each other. This is something that all the higher-ups in our clan yearn to achieve. However, that's just an ideal. Now, young man, tell me your answer. I'll see how well you answer before deciding whether to invest in you in the future. If you satisfy me, I won't mind using some resources to accelerate your growth as a new generation genius. If that's all, I won't shortchange you on what I'm entitled to, but I'll treat you the same as other ordinary people with some talent. Clearly, this elder, whose hair had turned completely white, nurtured his clansmen not only based on their talent as ninjas, but also on their character, vision, wisdom, and stance. Now, tell me your answer, the answer you have in your heart right now. I won't give you much time to think about it. The elder walked slowly toward the clan's treasury, with his hands behind his back. Gen Uchiha lowered his head slightly and began to think quickly. The Grand Elder was definitely not satisfied with his previous answer. In his view, the relationship between the Uchiha clan and Konoha was definitely not one of mutual harmony. Otherwise, there would be no need for him to ask such a question. Given his age, status, and experience, he must have already realized the conflict between the Uchiha and Konoha to ask such a question. He wanted to know if he had enough insight and intelligence to see this, and then use that to judge whether I was worth investing in and developing, and whether I had the ability to contribute to solving this problem in the future. It seems that there are intelligent people within the Uchiha clan who are aware of the problems the clan is currently facing. For example, the elder standing before us. However, he certainly couldn't have predicted how serious the conflict between Konoha and the Uchiha clan would become in the future. Judging from the looks of it, this person obviously didn't live to see 20 years later, and even less likely would have known that his eldest grandson in the original timeline would be so foolish as to commit the beastly acts of patricide, matricide, and the extermination of his entire clan. Before the massacre, no one believed that the powerful Uchiha clan, which had been strong for 1,000 years, would disappear so inexplicably. As for now, this conflict has only just begun to emerge, and it just so happens that only a few people have become aware of it. Therefore, I need an answer that reflects my knowledge as a newly promoted genius genin, and that will satisfy the elder. At the very least, he couldn't say that the Uchiha clan would face annihilation in the future. Nobody will believe that. If he goes too far, Gen Uchiha will only think that he is deliberately exaggerating and making a fuss, and then he will just give him a few decent ninjutsu to get rid of him. After some thought, Uchiha Gen had already prepared his plan. The relationship between the family and the village is now heading in the opposite direction of this ideal. Even if there have only been some signs of this in the past few years, if it is not stopped, it may one day lead to a major disaster. Gen Uchiha set the tone right from the start. The elder paused, stopping in place, seemingly wanting to give Yuan more time to speak. Go on and state your reasons. Power brings a corresponding status, and status brings a desire for corresponding power and benefits. This desire will inevitably lead to suppression by the vested interests. If there is a lack of sufficient trust between the two sides, then this suppression will naturally cause more serious troubles. I find it hard to believe that a newly graduated genin would say such things. Mikoto said that you met Shinji before you came. He taught you these words. That silent guy doesn't seem to be that smart. The elder looked at Uchiha Gen with a scrutinizing gaze. Elder, this is of course my own idea. Just this morning during the graduation assessment, Sarutobi Enjun defeated Inahisa by holding oil in his mouth in order to win. If my fireball jutsu hadn't been strong enough, I would have lost to him too. When we have the ability to compete for first place, we will naturally strive to do so, just as a family will certainly strive to gain a higher status. In a ninja academy, it might just be a small trick like putting oil in your mouth. But what if it was scaled up to the whole village, or even the entire ninja world? Although the events at the Ninja Academy are simpler, that doesn't stop me from using a small analogy to draw a larger one. The elder nodded slightly, seemingly satisfied with Uchiha Gen's answer and accepting his statement. I bet you enjoy reading and thinking, because a young person who hasn't experienced much can only gain some vague and not necessarily practical experience from the wisdom and experience of those who came before them. Sometimes I read books after training, mostly history, perhaps because I want to find the commonalities among the strong people in history. So what kind of disaster do you think this will be? The elder looked directly at Uchiha Gen and asked. The latter shook his head slightly. We don't need to know, we just need to prepare for the worst. If we can handle even the worst, then we can certainly handle anything else. Uchiha Gen suddenly burst out laughing. He genuinely admired this kid more than any other young member of the clan. His talent was decent. Although he wasn't top tier in his eyes, he was still the number one in his ninja academy, which was quite good. Most importantly, he was smart enough, had a vision beyond his years, and understood the importance of planning ahead. Yuan, you are very good. Although you are only 12 years old, you already have a vision that surpasses most of the clan members, and the mindset that only a ninja of the clan leader level possesses. Perhaps you are still a bit immature, but I have finally seen another young man with the potential to shoulder the mission of clan revival in the future. What does it mean to have the mindset of a clan leader at the age of 12? Uchiha Gen thought of a certain weasel and glanced at Mikoto, who stood quietly beside him like a Yamato Shiko. By the way, Elder, you just said again. Does that mean there are other members of the family like me? Chapter 8, Ninjutsu in the Clan Treasury. Gen Uchiha was quite curious about the other young man the elder had mentioned. Yes, that young man is 8 years older than you. He also realized that his family would have conflicts with the village in the future and that it would need to be suppressed. However, his background is better than yours, so I am not surprised that he has performed like that. Then he is. He is Fugaku, the clan chief's son, and he is already the captain of the police force. His position in the clan is second only to the clan chief and a few elders. That's fine. Gen Uchiha immediately lost interest. Fugaku may indeed have good judgment, but his abilities are questionable. Judging from his actions in the original timeline, he was neither a competent clan leader nor a qualified father, having raised his son to such an extent and led a powerful ninja clan to its demise. The elder continued. Fugaku believed that although the clan was powerful, it was far less powerful than the village. If the two sides had a conflict, or even if it escalated into a war, it could very likely lead to the decline of the clan and even its eventual collapse. And you, too, believe that this will lead to disaster. In conclusion, we are all pessimistic about the future of our family. I don't know what the future holds, but I know what the higher-ups in Konoha want. What they want is to turn the Uchiha into a sword that won't hurt them, an obedient hunting dog. Because their strength is far inferior to the first Hokage, and their magnanimity and wisdom are far inferior to the second Hokage, they will definitely weaken the Uchiha and suppress them in every way, so that they will eventually become like Inuzuka and Aburame. However, the Uchiha are not people who only know how to accept suppression and not know how to resist, and we will not allow the glory of the clan to fade in our hands. As the founding clan of Konoha and the most powerful ninja clan in the village, we must strive for a status and power commensurate with our clan's strength, which is something that the current leadership of the village absolutely cannot accept. However, the family's power isn't that great. At least, I don't believe the family currently has the ability to acquire these things. The elder sighed heavily. He was of the same generation as the first Hokage and Madara Uchiha, only slightly younger than them, and roughly the same age as Tobirama Senju, who had already died in battle. His extensive experience from the Warring States period made him realize that the future prospects of his family were not optimistic, especially after Madara left. Although the Uchiha clan still seemed powerful, they no longer had a top-tier expert who could keep the situation in check. Without the Mangekaiwu Sharingan and without a cage-level wielder, the Uchiha clan's fate was sealed. Even if such a master were to emerge, it would be impossible for a single person to contend against the Konoha leadership group, which possesses multiple top-tier talents. Therefore, he needs to cultivate as many strong individuals as possible for the family, with sufficient strength, vision, and wisdom to change everything in the future. Even if he said he only had a few years left to live and was destined not to see that future. Uchiha Gen continued forward, following in the footsteps of the first elder. Will the Uchiha clan be transformed into a ninja clan on par with Inuzuka and Aburame? Perhaps the other high-ranking officials besides Danzo did think this way, but they overestimated themselves and underestimated the depravity of certain beasts. We've arrived. The elder stopped and led Uchiha Gen to a simple and ancient-looking pavilion. A middle-aged man with a missing arm was sitting on a stone bench in front of the attic reading a book. Hearing the voice of the person who came, he hurriedly got up. When he saw that it was the elder, he took out the key. "Elder, you've brought another genius from the clan to choose ninjutsu. You seem quite satisfied." The first elder, Uchiha Gen, chuckled. "This child is named Yuan. I believe that he will bring a future to the family, just like that boy Fugaku. To receive such praise from you, this young man must be quite capable." The middle-aged Uchiha took out a key from his pocket and opened the attic door. Gen Uchiha followed the elder into the room, while Makoto Uchiha stayed outside, talking to a middle-aged Uchiha man. From their conversation, it was clear that he was one of her cousins. This is part of the clan's storehouse. The first floor contains relatively simple techniques. The second floor contains ninjutsu that do not involve nature transformation. The third and fourth floors contain eye techniques and training skills related to the Sharingan. And from the fifth floor onwards, there are powerful techniques at the level of 3 Tomo and Jonin. With a family tradition spanning 1,000 years and the Sharingan capable of copying ninjutsu, the family possesses almost every mainstream ninjutsu of every attribute in the ninja world. They also have countless techniques summarized by their predecessors that are most suitable for the Uchiha clan, ensuring there's plenty for you to choose from. I can make the decision that all the ninjutsu on the first and second floors will be available to you, and once you awaken your Sharingan, the same will be true for the third and fourth floors. However, I must remind you, don't try to learn too many difficult ninjutsu techniques right away. What you need to do now is develop your own basic combat system." Uchiha Gen asked the Grand Elder. "Elder, could you give me some recommendations?" Although this person is old, he is still a Jonin Uchiha with 3 Tomo Sharingan. He is knowledgeable and experienced. Rather than choosing for yourself, it is better to ask for his opinion. It is good. A few hours later, Gen Uchiha carried a small package and returned home. This is a 5-story building, about 100 square meters in size. It is said that when Konoha was first established, Hashirama Senju built it with a simple clap of his hands, and it was later assigned to his grandfather. Most of the houses in this area came from this, although there were definitely some interior modifications made according to the original owner's wishes. It was meaningless. This house was indeed built by the first Hokage using wood release, making it extremely historically significant. After returning home, Uchiha-gen quickly ate the bowl of ramen he had packed on his way back, then took a quick shower to wash away his fatigue before carrying a box to the table. Inside the cardboard box were several ninjutsu scrolls and training notes, with ninjutsu techniques that had just been selected from the clan's storehouse that afternoon placed next to them. For me now, ninjutsu is not a weakness, although there is still much room for improvement. But as the elder said, I need to start now to develop a basic combat system to deal with all the problems I will face in actual combat. In terms of burst damage, I'm currently quite capable. My proficiency with the Great Fireball technique has increased, which has also deepened my understanding of fire release techniques. I've also mastered C-rank fire release techniques like Phoenix Flower and Dragon Fire technique. Although their power is not as great as the Great Fireball technique, at least I have more options in battle. Therefore, in terms of ninjutsu, all I really need to do right now is try learning more wind release ninjutsu. This will not only help me avoid being countered and increase my attack range, but also allow me to combine it with fire release to amplify its power. Chapter 9, Ninjutsu and Class Assignment. Gen Uchiha began to write and draw in a small booklet, summarizing the various resources he currently possessed. Fire release ninjutsu is the least lacking. Before the nature transformations at the Jonin level are involved, even though these different fire release techniques do have some differences, a ninja who can master one fire release ninjutsu will not be much worse at other fire release techniques, as there are many commonalities among them. Just like himself, after his proficiency with the Great Fireball technique was enhanced, he also easily mastered the other fire release ninjutsu. In this regard, all I need to do is follow the path summarized by the powerful members of the Uchiha clan throughout history. After all, when it comes to fire style, the Uchiha are the experts among experts. Even the Sarutobi clan, who are also skilled in fire style, are a bit inferior to the Uchiha in terms of their foundation in fire style. What he needs to improve are other aspects. Uchiha-gen placed several ninjutsu scrolls on the table and arranged them in the order he had determined. At the front were 2 scrolls and a booklet. One was a C-rank wind release, Gale Palm, the other was the Naraku appearance technique, and the last one had the words Uchiha-style swordsmanship part 1 written on it. Below is a line of small print that reads, Konoha 14th Year Compilation. According to the elder, the Uchiha Ryu swordsmanship had already taken shape 100 years ago. During the Warring States period, it was compiled and edited by Uchiha Izuna, the most outstanding swordsmanship master of the Uchiha clan in the past 100 years. Later, in the 14th year of Konoha, Uchiha Kagami reorganized and classified it again. The first part of this book is intended for Uchiha who haven't awakened their Sharingan yet, and its main purpose is to lay the foundation. The subsequent parts are for Uchiha who have awakened their Sharingan. Whether or not an Uchiha possesses the Sharingan has a significant impact on their fighting style. Relying on their exceptional insight, reflexes, and genjutsu, the Uchiha clan's swordsmanship differs greatly from that of other ninja clans. However, this does not mean that the first part, which lays the foundation, is not very effective in practical application. Even without the Sharingan, the Uchiha-style swordsmanship in the previous chapter is still a top-tier swordsmanship in the ninja world, with considerable power, and can be practiced normally like other swordsmanship. It is more than enough, even for the Jonin level. Every top expert, while not necessarily a perfect all-rounder, will never have a significant weakness in any one area. Even if they do, they will have other ways to make up for that weakness. Otherwise, they would be killed by their enemies before they even became famous, because the enemy would exploit their weaknesses. The longer a clan like the Uchiha has a long history and produces many powerful ninjas, the more it values the all-round development of young ninjas. And in this way, it has evolved a series of combat systems that have been proven in countless battles. Finally, Uchiha Gen pulled out 2 new ninjutsu scrolls. He didn't plan to use that green skill learning card on any of the other spells. With his talent and solid foundation, learning C-rank ninjutsu wouldn't be particularly difficult for him. 5-year-old Itachi Uchiha was able to learn the great fireball technique from Fugaku after watching it only once. Sasuke Uchiha's talent was a notch below his brother's, but he was still a genius recognized by Kakashi. He could breathe fire after watching Fugaku's performance only once, and after practicing hard for an afternoon, he could basically master the ninjutsu. Even the A-rank ninjutsu lightning blade, which involves the nature transformation of lightning release, was only used in actual combat after a month. Uchiha Genikairo's talent was only considered above average among his peers. Compared to Sarutobi Enjun and Uchiha Inahisa, he was actually quite inferior, and even 2 points less than Nara Shikaku and Yamanaka Inoichi. He only managed to surpass them by relying on the rewards he received from the system's gacha system. But it wasn't bad at all. At least in the early stages when his level was low and the system provided little help, he did get into the elite class through his own talent and hard work. This meant that in the eyes of the people in charge of selecting the elite class members, his talent actually had the potential to become a jonin. He hasn't encountered high-level ninjutsu yet, so he doesn't know for the time being. However, given the time, the lineage, the annotations, and the instruction, learning regular C-rank ninjutsu wouldn't be particularly difficult for Gen Uchiha. But there are always exceptions to some ninjutsu in this world. For example, space-time ninjutsu, sensory ninjutsu, medical ninjutsu, and sealing techniques. The Flying Thunder God technique is a typical example. No matter how high your talent is, if you don't have the potential, you just can't learn it. The situation is better than with space-time ninjutsu, medical ninjutsu, and sealing techniques. They are not as extreme, but not everyone has the talent to learn them. This time, Uchiha Gen specifically selected a sensory ninjutsu with a learning difficulty level of C from the clan's archives. At least among those with sensory ninjutsu talent, this technique is considered to be C-level in difficulty. In fact, Gen Uchiha originally wanted to learn medical ninjutsu to enhance his ability to survive. He also has Sakura Haruno's character card, even if it's just for a Ninja Academy student. Sakura was able to grow into the strongest medical ninja besides Tsunade, so her foundation in related fields must have been excellent. Unfortunately, there weren't any suitable ones. At that time, none of Hiruzen Sarutobi's 3 disciples had yet earned the title of the legendary Sannin, and the medical ninja system had not yet been established by Tsunade. In other words, at this time, the special ninja profession of medical ninja had not yet appeared. Konoha did have a small number of people who knew medical ninjutsu, but apart from Tsunade, most of them were only half-baked. Because current medical ninjutsu is not yet systematic, the knowledge is scattered, and the types of ninjutsu are dispersed. It wasn't until Tsunade, the progenitor of medical ninjas, with her exceptional medical ninja vision, integrated all the knowledge summarized by her predecessors and built a complete medical ninja system, that medical ninjas officially stepped onto the stage of the ninja world and played an important role in several ninja wars. The Uchiha clan has certainly developed its own medical system over hundreds of years of war, but its effectiveness is definitely far inferior to the medical ninja system created by Tsunade. After realizing that it did not meet his expectations, Gen Uchiha had no choice but to turn his attention to other ninjutsu. Sealing techniques are difficult to learn, but even more difficult to master. Moreover, before reaching a high level of proficiency, they are not very effective in actual combat. In comparison, sensory ninjutsu and space-time ninjutsu are better solutions. For Uchiha Gen, the most suitable techniques for him are either space-time ninjutsu or sensory ninjutsu. The only space-time ninjutsu he can access right now is the summoning jutsu. The function of summoning jutsu is not limited to summoning summoned beasts. Ninja tools, puppets, and even corpses can be summoned. Even the forbidden technique, impure world reincarnation, can be classified as a summoning jutsu. The Uchiha clan is also skilled at using summoning techniques to assist in battle. Their most important technique is a B-rank summoning technique called Lightning Sword Transformation, which can summon a large number of ninja tools in an instant. For the Uchiha clan, who are masters of using ninja tools, no ninja is more suited to this technique. The most basic summoning jutsu has a difficulty level of C. For those with the potential in this area, this jutsu is not difficult to learn at all. They only need to meet the basic requirements, such as chakra control. Let's first test if I have any talent for space-time ninjutsu. If not, I'll use this skill learning card. If I can learn it, I'll use it directly to learn sensory ninjutsu. Uchiha Gen unfurled a black scroll, thought for a moment, then bit his index finger and wrote his name on the scroll. The purpose of this scroll was to allow him to establish a contract with a particular raven clan that his tribe was raising. Once the contract is signed and the leader crow of the clan is successfully summoned, this ninja crow clan will belong to Uchiha Gen, provided he pays a fee, but fortunately the Grand Elder waived it for him. If new ninja crows join in the future, all you need to do is smear a little of their blood on the back of the scroll. Haisuyu Shenwei. After writing his name, Uchiha Gen immediately formed hand seals and used the blood remaining on his fingers to perform a spell, slamming his hand on the ground. Immediately afterwards, black lines appeared and a plume of smoke rose. A dozen or so crows appeared in Uchiha Gen's house, cawing and circling inside. The most robust crow, with glossy feathers, flapped its wings and flew to Uchiha Gen. Seeing this, Yuan couldn't help but smile. He stretched out his arm and let the ninja crow land on his right arm, while pulling a bag of dried meat out of the drawer with his left hand. The ninja crow raised its head and cawed loudly. The other dozen or so crows also cawed and landed in front of Uchiha Gen, lining up on the ground. Gen Uchiha tore open the package of dried meat and fed each crow one by one. The main purpose of this process is to get closer to the crows and let them become familiar with your scent. When feeding them again, you can simply throw a few packets of food in front of them. It seems I do have some talent for space-time ninjutsu. These ninja crows were specially trained by the Uchiha clan. They possess a certain amount of chakra within their bodies. Their physical strength surpasses that of ordinary birds. They can understand human speech, and they are familiar with basic tactical commands. Their combat strength isn't particularly high. If you want to make ninja crows work in conjunction with your ninjutsu and genjutsu like Itachi and Shisui, then the summoner needs to undergo specialized training, which is no less difficult than mastering a high-level ninjutsu. There aren't many of these ninja crows now. Although they have undergone basic training from the Uchiha clan, their main purpose is still to conduct fixed-range reconnaissance at medium to long distances. In addition to this reconnaissance plan, there is also some knowledge belonging to the summoner, which can be used to distinguish the content by the loudness, frequency, and tone of the crow's call. For example, the enemy's location, distance, number, and characteristics. After feeding the ninja crows, Uchiha Gen released the summoning jutsu and took out the last ninjutsu scroll. This is the sensory ninjutsu. It doesn't have a special name. It's just called chakra sensing technique. At close to medium range, it can vaguely sense the surrounding chakra aura and judge the number and strength of enemies. Gen Uchiha slowly placed his hand on the scroll. Use the skill learning card, green. Eh, eh. 1 day later. With the boost from the skill learning card, he had already mastered the basics of chakra perception after a day of study. With his current perception abilities, when his perception is activated, he can probably only detect a range of about 10 meters around him. If you want to expand further, you either need to continue to improve your proficiency in this sensory ninjutsu, or you need to use sheer strength to boost your mental power and brute force your way up. As dawn broke, the sky gradually brightened. After a day of rigorous ninjutsu training and a night's rest, Uchiha once again prepared his gear and headed to the Ninja Academy. He has already graduated, so this trip is certainly not for attending school. The day after their graduation exams, these newly promoted genin were to meet with their respective class instructors. By the way, pick up your ninja certificate with your own number. Ninja ID 5486. This is Uchiha's ninja number. This means he is the 5486th student to graduate from the Ninja Academy. Other ninjas from the same cohort, such as Sarutobi Enjun, Aburame Shiki, and Nara Shikaku, all had ninja numbers starting with 54. It's worth mentioning that a significant portion of Konoha's ninjas did not graduate from the Ninja Academy. The fact that the latest batch of graduating genin has a number of over 5,000 does not mean that Konoha only has over 5,000 ninjas. In fact, the Ninja Academy did not have many students in its early days. The first class had only 36 people. At that time, all the other Konoha ninjas were trained by their respective clans in their own way. For a long time afterward, this remained the case until the third Hokage ordered the Ninja Academy to undergo several expansions and increase enrollment, eventually reaching its current size. Today, it has gradually become the mainstream way for Konoha to train ninjas, and the only way for ordinary people to become ninjas. It can be said that a large portion of Konoha's ninjas were not trained through the Ninja Academy, but were born through other blood ties, master-disciple relationships, etc., thus forming a huge ninja village with more than 10,000 ninjas. We will now begin class assignments. The person in charge of class assignments was still Menga, the examiner from the previous Chunin exams. Class 1. Akimichi Choza, Nara Shikaku, Yamanaka Inoichi, Jonin Instructor, Sarutobi Biwako. Team 2, Shiki Aburame, Tetsuka Uchiha, Sani Kazamatsuri, Jonin Instructor, Jacques Inuzuka. Team 7, Sarutobi Enjun, Uchiha Yuzuki Ruri, Jonin Instructor Orochimaru. I finally heard my own name called. Why is Orochimaru the Jonin who is my mentor? Is it a butterfly effect caused by myself? Uchiha only remembered that Orochimaru had two disciples. One was Nawaki, the grandson of the first Hokage and Tsunede's younger brother, who died in battle 3 years ago after stepping into a trap. The other was Mitarashi Anko, who had not yet been born. And the lineup of this class. Uchiha glanced at Enjun Sarutobi and Ruri Yuzuki. The former is looking at the latter with a silly grin, seemingly happy to be on the same team as his goddess. Chapter 10, Orochimaru. She was the top student in this class. Sarutobi Enjun was second, and Yuzuki Ruri's talent was also considered above average. Her assessment scores were all in the top 5 in this elite class. Based on her current performance, she was no worse than Konoha elite jonin like Aburame Shiki and Akimichi Choza, who would shine brightly in the future. Such a lineup, coupled with Orochimaru, seems like something the third Hokage could have deliberately put together. Indeed, as the son of the third Hokage, Sarutobi Enjun was his teacher and teammate, so it was impossible for the third Hokage not to personally intervene. And he himself joined this team, becoming Sarutobi Enjun's teammate and Orochimaru's student. This means that he has not only come into the third Hokage site, but has also become a member of the Hokage lineage. Are they training me to be like Uchiha Shisui? And they're handing me over to Orochimaru for training. Perhaps this can be considered a good thing. The conflict between the Uchiha clan and the Hokage lineage began to emerge during the era of Tobirama Senju. During the time of the first Hokage, no one dared to cause trouble except for Madara. Hashirama Senju was also very magnanimous and had no prejudice against the Uchiha clan. Tobirama Senju did have considerable prejudices, and he even handed over the powerful police department to the Uchiha, turning it into a cage to trap the Uchiha. He was extremely cautious, but he also had enough ability to suppress these conflicts and prevent them from escalating. Until Tobirama Senju passed away, Kagami Uchiha, who was left behind as a bridge between the Uchiha and Konoha leadership, also died young. The conflict between the Uchiha clan and Konoha began to deepen little by little from that time onward. If Uchiha Kagami had not died, the Uchiha clan would always have had an elder serving as a high-ranking member of Konoha. In the original timeline, 20 years later, the conflict between the two sides would not have been so deep. At least after the explosion, a tragedy like the Night of Extinction wouldn't occur. Perhaps in the original timeline, the third Hokage entrusted Obito to Minato Namikaze with the intention of nurturing this talented but simple-minded and hot-blooded Uchiha into the next Uchiha Kagami. And after Obito, there were Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi. However, in the end, due to Madara's presence, Danzo's interference, and the fact that Obito and Itachi were both mentally unstable, things were all messed up. If any one of the aforementioned individuals had acted reasonably well, this tragedy would not have occurred. As for now, I seem to have become one of those characters, and although the conflict between the two sides has gradually emerged in the years since Uchiha Kagami's death, it is only a nascent stage, still relatively easy to suppress and resolve, and not irreconcilable. Suddenly, the image of meeting the Grand Elder yesterday flashed into the back of Uchiha Gen's mind. If knowledgeable members of the Uchiha clan knew that they had become Orochimaru's student and entered the Hokage lineage, what would they do? Will he be short-sighted like Fugaku Uchiha, simply using him as a tool for intelligence gathering? Or will he try to see himself as someone who can advance into the upper echelons of the Hokage faction and strive for power and status? And what about the third Hokage? Now that she had fallen into his sights, he must want to see if he could control her with the so-called will of fire. This is highly probable, given the examples of Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi. If that's the case, then if he wants to cultivate himself into a usable pawn, he must also cultivate himself into someone with considerable strength and influence within the Uchiha clan. In other words, before his growth would pose a threat to the third Hokage, he might not mind using the Hokage authority to grant himself some resources to accelerate his growth. However, we'll have to wait until we meet Orochimaru to see what actually happens. At least for now, this should be a good thing. Just as Uchiha Gen was analyzing his situation and weighing the pros and cons based on the information he knew, time quietly slipped away. After the class assignment process was completed, a middle-aged female jonin appeared at the door and took away this generation of Ino Shikacho. That was the wife of the third Hokage, Sarutobi Baiwako. The Sarutobi clan had a close relationship with the Ino Shikacho clan and was a witness to the alliance between the three clans. When the previous Ino Shikacho clan took over as head, it was the third Hokage's father, the famous Sarutobi Sasuke, who served as a witness. This generation will definitely be witnessed by Sarutobi Hiruzen. If there is a next generation, it will be a Suma from the original timeline who will witness it. However, during wartime, Hiruzen Sarutobi, as Hokage, didn't have time to serve as a jonin leading a team, but the Sarutobi clan would definitely send out a Jonin of sufficient caliber. Sarutobi Biwako was also a Jonin with considerable strength, and she was also the wife of the third Hokage. Since the third Hokage was not personally appointed as Hokage, her status was just right. One by one, Konoha Jonin entered the classroom and took away their students. Soon, a pale-skinned, cold-faced young man with long hair wearing a green Jonin vest appeared at the door. Sarutobi and Jun, Uchiha Gen, Yuzuki Ruri, the three of you come with me. Upon hearing the slightly hoarse voice, Uchiha Gen and the other two immediately stood up and followed behind Orochimaru. A few minutes later, near the gate of Konoha village. Orochimaru-sensei, what's going on here? Sarutobi and Jun looked at the approaching Konoha gates and hesitated before speaking. I haven't allowed you to call me teacher yet, at least not now, because the Jonin in charge of a team has the right to send newly graduated genin back. Orochimaru stopped a short distance from the gate, turned around, and sized up the three newly graduated genin with his golden eyes. Life is fragile. One moment you may be alive and well, and the next you may be lying on the ground, lifeless. This is especially true for the weak. If you don't have enough talent, strength, capacity, and wisdom to protect yourself, you are destined to die on the battlefield. I don't need to take in students like that. As the son or grandson of the Hokage, there is absolutely no need for them to risk their lives as ninjas. They can just stay at home, and there will be no danger for them. Orochimaru spoke calmly. His eyes were composed, and his words seemed to carry a hidden meaning. A realization dawned on Gen Uchiha. It seems that the death of his beloved disciple, Nawaki, 2 or 3 years ago, had a great impact on Orochimaru. Even though Snake hadn't turned evil yet, he already had a lot of insights into life, which made him unwilling to take on apprentices for a long time. You are only qualified to become his disciple if you gain his approval that your life is not so fragile. Lord Orochimaru, how do you know we lack that talent? We are determined to do anything. Yuzuki Ruri looked at Orochimaru with a determined gaze. Chapter 11, Orochimaru who doesn't want to take on disciples. Unlike her other two teammates, who have the Hokage as their father and the most powerful clan in the ninja world behind them, the Yuzuki clan has always been a small clan with no top-tier experts throughout history, and even Jonin are only 1 or 2. Now that she finally has such an opportunity, how could she be willing to give it up? That's right, Orochimaru-senpai. Don't think I'm just someone who relies on his father just because I'm the Hokage's son. Sarutobi and Jun followed closely behind Yuzuki Ruri and said excitedly. Orochimaru looked at Sarutobi and Jun's excited expression with a hint of disdain in his eyes. His dead apprentice was so passionate that he ended up walking headlong into a trap set by the enemy and died a horrible death. I think Orochimaru-senpai hasn't truly rejected us yet, but is giving us a chance in his own way, right? Otherwise, there would be no need for you to bring us out of the village. Orochimaru turned his gaze to Uchiha Gen. Actually, he really didn't want to lead this team because it was too troublesome. Sarutobi and Jun's identity as the son of the Hokage was very sensitive, and he couldn't afford any accidents. But for Orochimaru, Uchiha Gen was even more troublesome. How about training another Uchiha, like Uchiha Kagami? That means Orochimaru not only wanted to cultivate Gen Uchiha's strength, but also to guide his thinking and turn him into one of his own, not just to keep him from getting into trouble. But you're not stupid, you're right. I hope you can react just as quickly when you're in danger. As Orochimaru spoke, he tossed a mission scroll to Gen Uchiha. I won't arrange some meaningless survival drills at the beginning like other Jonin. Let's get straight to the point. This mission is one I carefully selected yesterday. Use this mission to prove to me that you are capable of gaining my approval. Otherwise, I'll ask Sarutobi-sensei to find you a different Jonin to lead the team. I have no interest in babysitting cannon fodder who are destined to die on the battlefield. Orochimaru's move left Sarutobi and Jun and Yuzuki Ruri somewhat bewildered. Is it appropriate for someone to leave the village to perform a mission right after graduation? Meanwhile, Uchiha Gen had already unrolled the scroll he received and begun to read it. Extraordinary people do extraordinary things. Orochimaru is indeed someone who doesn't adhere to rules and has a very strong sense of self. Given that his identity is different from that of an ordinary Jonin, such a thing happening is both unexpected and reasonable. After realizing what was happening, Sarutobi Enjun and Yuzuki Ruri also leaned over to look at the contents of the scroll. Rank C mission: locate and eliminate bandits and collect taxes. Mission Commissioner, Orochimaru's team. Contractor, Lord of River Valley, Land of Fire. Reward for the mission, 60,000 taels. Task assignment details. C-level mission. The first mission for a genin is a C rank. This must be the first time in the entire Hidden Leaf Village, or even the 5 great ninja villages. It's a wonder the third Hokage agreed to give Orochimaru's team this kind of mission. Wasn't he afraid of something unexpected happening? Gen Uchiha glanced at Orochimaru out of the corner of his eye. Okay, with Orochimaru around, even if he's not in his complete form, his abilities are far beyond those of an ordinary Jonin, so there shouldn't be any problems. For Orochimaru and Hiruzen Sarutobi, it's better to have an accident on a mission of this level than to have an accident on the battlefield in the future. At least for now, Orochimaru's strength is enough to cover the fallout. For Gen Uchiha, being able to carry out a C-rank mission at this stage is also a good thing. The experience gained will be far greater than what a regular genin would get from a grueling D-rank mission. I wonder what kind of trickery lies behind this seemingly simple C-level mission. Because Orochimaru had previously stated that this mission was one he had carefully selected. Soon after registering their ninja numbers and other information with the Chunin guarding the Konoha Gate, the group set off together and left the village. This mission is located in a relatively remote river valley town. Although it is not particularly far from Konoha, transportation is not very convenient. It is quite troublesome for anyone other than ninjas to get there. The town was able to develop because of certain conditions. Aside from the inconvenient transportation, the soil here is quite fertile, and the surrounding mountains contain abundant mineral veins and forestry resources, enough to be self-sufficient. They can also sell minerals and other resources to generate wealth, providing the daimyo with tax revenue worth millions of taels every year. However, shortly after the outbreak of the Ninja World War, a group of bandits appeared in the vicinity. They not only robbed caravans, but also recently stole the taxes and supplies that the town was preparing to supply to the daimyo. If it were just robbing caravans, Konoha might not necessarily wipe them out, because their presence would make caravans wanting to travel to the vicinity feel dangerous and hire Konoha ninjas, thus increasing Konoha's mission quota. But if it were tax robbing, that would be a different matter altogether. The bulk of Konoha's military spending comes from the daimyo's appropriations, and the daimyo's wealth mainly comes from tax revenue. In other words, some of the money they stole belonged to Konoha. This is intolerable. The ninjas traveled very fast. The group set off from the gates of Konoha in the morning and arrived at their destination just before lunchtime. Now it's all up to you. I'll just observe your performance and won't interfere. Let's go. Orochimaru stood on a tree trunk with his arms crossed, looking at the town in the distance, and addressed the 3 genin behind him. Yes, times 3. 3 figures darted out simultaneously, heading towards the town gate. "Wait a minute." Uchiha Gen suddenly spoke up. Sarutobi Injun asked, "What's wrong, Yuan? Do you think we should just go in like this?" Uchiha Gen addressed his 2 teammates. Ruri Yuzuki tilted her head, her purple hair fluttering in the wind. "You mean we should disguise ourselves before entering this town, so that the spies left behind by the bandits won't see that Konoha has sent ninjas and warn them to escape?" "That makes sense, Yuan. You're so observant." Sarutobi Injun gave Uchiha Gen a thumbs up. "Not only that, this mission was assigned to us by Orochimaru as a test. Although it is only a C-rank mission, it is certainly not as easy as simply finding bandits, killing them all, and finding taxes. Not to mention that we have never carried out a C-rank mission before, especially without a team leader. Therefore, we can never be too careful. Before officially carrying out the mission, we need to gather intelligence first." Chapter 12: Executing the Mission. Seeing that neither of his 2 teammates objected, Uchiha Gen simply took command of the team and began to give instructions. "I'll go to the Lord of River Valley Town, alone, to get more specific information from the client. Liulai and Yanjun, you 2 split up and go into the town to gather other intelligence to get a more comprehensive understanding of the mission." "Also." Gen Uchiha bit his right thumb, then immediately formed hand seals. Haisuyu Shenwei. 5 hand seals were quickly completed. As the right hand was slammed to the ground, a thick plume of white smoke rose up, and a dozen jet-black ninja crows appeared in midair, cawing loudly. The ninja crows will monitor the surroundings and scout the terrain, just in case. They might even be able to find relevant clues. Although these ninja crows had only recently formed a summoning contract with him, and their combat strength and teamwork were not particularly high, they had all undergone basic training from the Uchiha clan. Therefore, it was not difficult for them to carry out a simple reconnaissance of this town and the surrounding area. On the surface, in secret, and even in the heavens, Uchiha Gen made arrangements with utmost caution. "You've learned a new ninjutsu. I've never seen you use it at school before." Sarutobi Injun scratched his head, watching the flock of crows scatter and fly into the sky. Uchiha Gen didn't explain anything, but simply looked at Sarutobi Injun and said, "Let's act quickly, lest we delay too long and Orochimaru-senpai become dissatisfied. Try to complete the intelligence gathering before 5 p.m., and regardless of the amount of information, return here to meet up at 5 p.m. Sarutobi Injun then realized what was happening. It would indeed be a very shameful thing if they failed Orochimaru's trial and were sent back by the Jonin in charge. At the very least, he'll definitely get a lot of nagging from Biwako and the third Hokage. We need to hurry." Soon, Sarutobi Injun and Yuzuki Ruri, disguised by a transformation technique, entered the town as an elderly couple visiting relatives from afar. Uchiha Gen simply tidied his clothes, making the red and white fan-shaped clan emblem on his clothes more eye-catching, before entering the town and asking the soldiers guarding the city gate for information. The Lord of River Valley Town is named Hace, and his ancestors were vassals of a daimyo. In terms of rank alone, he can be considered a mid-level nobleman. Having one's own fiefdom, with a population of over 100,000, would place one in the upper middle tier among the nobles of the Land of Fire. While not as powerful as the great nobles who even the daimyo had to respect, they were certainly not as poor as the lesser nobles who were about to lose their fiefdoms. A few minutes later, at the Lord's Manor, I never expected that they would be members of the famous Uchiha clan, here to help the clan head deal with the bandits. A short, stout man wearing small round sunglasses led Uchiha Gen into the mansion. Uchiha Gen had never seen what a daimyo's palace looked like, but this mansion was also decorated with painted beams and red curtains, with tiered terraces and pavilions, exuding a noble air. You flatter me, Lord Ito. This mansion looks magnificent. It seems your patriarch and Lord Ito are both very capable in managing their household. Uchiha Gen sized up the passing servants and addressed the Ito family head. This person's name is Itono, the steward of the Lord of River Valley Town, which can be roughly understood as a role similar to a butler. When the Lord is capable, the steward is only responsible for household affairs, servants, and arranging schedules. If the Lord does not want to get involved, he will entrust the management of government affairs and the operation of the territory to the steward. As for which type it is, in River Valley Town, Uchiha Gen believes that they need to continue to observe. What he just said was a test. Unfortunately, Ito K laughed it off and got away with it. Ha, Mr. Yuan, you flatter me. I was merely following the Lord's instructions and doing some insignificant things. River Valley Town's current state is entirely due to the Lord's wise leadership. The chubby Ito clan leader led Uchiha Gen into the attic. A fat man, much fatter than Ito Iya, was sitting cross-legged on the tatami mat, stuffing sweets into his mouth. She was dressed in gorgeous clothes, adorned with gold and jade, but she was a bit ugly. Master, this is Uchiha Gen, the ninja sent by Konoha to deal with the mountain bandits. Ito Ikray bent over and spoke to the fat man on the tatami mat. Oh, you're a Konoha ninja. Hey kid, since you're an Uchiha ninja, you must be really strong. I heard you can all breathe fire, is that true? Lord Haste looked at Gen Uchiha with a very wise gaze. The latter frowned slightly. He roughly knows the situation inside the Lord's house. Because Lord Haste's idiotic demeanor doesn't seem like an act. After apologizing to Uchiha Gen, Ito K hurriedly went up to persuade Lord Haste. It's probably because some lords are very precious, and the ninjutsu is too powerful, which might accidentally injure the lords. I see, that's impressive. Then I'll leave the bandits to you. Ito, I'm going to the capital for a few days, so I'll leave the house to you. The lord patted his large belly, creating a wave of flesh, and swayed as he straightened up. With the help of his maid, he left. After bowing respectfully to the lord, Ito Kere turned around and looked at Uchiha Gen. Since the lord has entrusted us with the entire matter, we will trouble the steward to cooperate. We will naturally cooperate to the best of our ability, but is Mr. Gen alone here to carry out the mission? It's not that I don't trust the ninjas of Konoha, it's just that those bandits are cunning and treacherous. Without enough manpower, I'm afraid. Ito K looked at Uchiha Gen with some hesitation. After all, no matter how you look at it, the ninja in front of him was too young, and he was all alone. If he hadn't recognized the Uchiha clan crest and known the Uchiha clan's power, he might have already started to show his displeasure. Uchiha Gen took a small sip of tea and replied to the Ito family head. It's all right. My teammates are still out. They're gathering information about the bandits. There's also a Jonin in the team, so their abilities are definitely not a problem. I just want to ask the Lord and clan leader, who are the ones who issued the mission, to explain the information to me in more detail. Well, actually, there were no bandits in River Valley Town a year ago. It was only as the impact of the Ninja World War grew that this group of bandits emerged. Ito K sighed as he looked at Uchiha Gen. Did they flee across the border? Uchiha Gen asked. No, not only that. If it were just that, it wouldn't be so troublesome. The real trouble is the true identity of these bandits. They have a significant relationship with the residents of the town. Uchiha Gen thought to himself, just as I thought. If it were that simple, and they could just find the bandits, wipe them out, and recover the taxes, Orochimaru wouldn't have needed to give them this task as a trial. There must be a deeper meaning behind this. The mountains surrounding River Valley Town are rich in mineral resources, and the quality of iron ore is among the best in the entire Land of Fire. In order to prepare for the war materials needed for the Ninja World War, the daimyo has already issued an order requiring all lords with iron ore resources within their territory to pay enough iron ore. River Valley Town has high-quality iron ore, so the daimyo has many requirements, but that doesn't mean the output is high. As the rich mineral deposits on the surface were exhausted, miners had to venture deeper underground to dig for even more difficult-to-extract ores. And in order to meet the daimyo's quota, you've driven the miners too far, so they've been forced to the mountains to become bandits. And they're related to the residents of the town, hiding bandits among the people, well-informed and impossible to catch. As for tax evasion, since they are ordinary people, if they dare to evade taxes, it means that someone is about to starve. What percentage of taxes is collected in your territory? Faced with a barrage of questions from Uchiha Gen, Ito Kei's eyes showed considerable surprise. This young ninja seems quite intelligent. He was able to deduce so much information from his words so quickly. In the past, the tax rate for the territory was 5 public and 5 private. However, after the miners all left, we needed to spend money to recruit additional miners in order to meet the daimyo's quota. But there was definitely not enough time, so we also needed to spend money to buy iron ore from other lords to temporarily meet the daimyo's needs. So the tax rate was changed to 6 public and 4 private after that. That's a really high tax rate. 5 or 6/10 of the fruits of hard work must be handed over to the state. Perhaps in the past, a 50% tax rate would have kept many people on the edge of financial stability. Life wouldn't have been too easy, but they wouldn't have starved to death. However, this additional 50% tax rate has now become the last straw that broke the camel's back. Those miners who fled to the mountains to become outlaws were actually part of these townspeople. One was a cousin of that family, another was an uncle of this family. They probably didn't know it was tax money destined for the daimyo. Seeing the money and supplies, they simply conspired and robbed it. Uchiha Gen finally understood. No wonder Orochimaru said this mission was carefully selected. Not only should those people be brought to justice, but their consciences should also be examined. These bandits were all pitiful people forced into this situation, but as ninjas, since they had robbed taxes, they had to be wiped out completely. Choose the mission, or choose your conscience. This kind of trial that enjoys testing human nature is really in line with Orochimaru's consistent style. Should we just kill them all and end it all? Orochimaru probably thinks that if you can't even be ruthless enough, you won't be able to get past him. Uchiha Gen then pulled Ito Ieyasu aside to ask him some other questions, before leaving the Lord's mansion with a small booklet containing a lot of information. It was 5 o'clock in the evening. The three of them reunited in the woods outside River Valley Town. As for Orochimaru, he has disappeared without a trace, presumably off doing something. A dozen or so ninja crows flapped their wings and fell from the sky. Let's all gather the intelligence. Gen Uchiha pulled out 2 packets of dried meat from his pocket, fed them to the ninja crows, and asked his 2 teammates. There's not much useful information. Most of the townspeople are vague, and we can't get any information out of them about the number of bandits or their location. Sarutobi Enjun shook his head regretfully. I'm afraid it's not that the information was vague, but that it was deliberately evasive. Yan Jun and I split up to investigate, and then we went to the tavern. We used money to question the waiter, and soon after we left, we were blocked in the alley. I arrested them, found a secluded place to lock them up, and used illusion magic to interrogate them. Many of these bandits had connections with the townspeople, and some were even relatives. They often helped each other in times of trouble. This time, it was because the Lord increased taxes, making it difficult for many townspeople to survive, that more people flocked to the mountains to become outlaws. Yuzuki Ruri sat cross-legged on the ground, her eyes fixed on Uchiha-gen, seemingly hoping he could come up with a solution. Well, it's similar to the information I gathered, but with a different focus. Uchiha-gen tossed the remaining bag of dried meat to the crows, letting them divide it among themselves. He then recounted his experiences at the Lord's mansion, concluding with, "It's obvious that Orochimaru-senpai is deliberately using this method to test us. If we can't be ruthless and complete the mission, then we'll have to start over." Yuzuki Ruri spoke softly. "So, what we need to do next is find these people, wipe them out completely, and recover as much tax revenue as possible." Sarutobi Enjun said in a low voice, "Isn't there any other way? They are just ordinary people forced into this situation." "Yes, I have." Gen Uchiha clapped his hands, looked at the flock of ninja crows that had finished eating, and released the summoning jutsu. "What is it?" "If you reincarnate now and go to the Pure Land, you might be able to meet the first Hokage or the Sage of Six Paths and ask them to revive you, quell the war in the ninja world, reshape the entire ninja world system, and make the daimyo and nobles willingly give up a portion of their own interests to the people who create wealth. In that case, not only will what happened here not happen again, but more than 90% of the problems in the entire ninja world can also be solved. Let's not make such unrealistic jokes. Then there's nothing we can do. Don't forget, no matter what the emergency, a ninja must always prioritize completing the mission. Everything must be done with the mission in mind. This is clearly written in the Ninja Code and is a key part of the Ninja Academy's exams. Ninjas are tools for completing missions, not heroes who uphold justice. Being soft-hearted and indecisive are not good adjectives to describe a ninja. Of course, we don't want to be tools, but reality leaves all ninjas with no choice. Unless you become strong enough, so strong that no one can beat you, and everyone else combined can't defeat you, then you can be like the first Hokage, using absolute strength to make the whole world make way for your ideals. As for now, we are just 3 genin. Even if you are the Hokage's son, you can't bring about any change." Uchiha-gen looked at Sarutobi Enjun, who had a troubled expression, and said in a calm tone, "Then at least we can do something within our power, right? For example, can we just arrest them without killing them?" This kid. Chapter 13, The Value of Cultivation. Maybe it's possible, maybe it isn't. Uchiha-gen looked at Sarutobi Enjun and said, "This lord is rather dim-witted. All matters in his territory are decided by his family. If you can offer him enough benefits, he probably won't refuse. I can't offer such benefits, and it's even less likely that someone from the small Leoli family could. So if you want, you can try it yourself. But when we go to the battlefield, the enemy will be ninjas who can use ninjutsu just like us. At that time, the enemy will not give you any chance to show mercy. Sometimes, just because you let an innocent child go, the information will be leaked and a great defeat will be caused. Every seemingly insignificant rule in the ninja code may have been the result of countless ninja predecessors risking their lives to summarize their experiences. To be merciful means being prepared for the entire team to perish with you. I understand everything you're saying." Sarutobi Enjun scratched his head in frustration. "But at least this time, we have the ability to do it, and there shouldn't be any serious consequences." As long as we give that family enough benefits, there shouldn't be any problems, right? Leave it to me. Anyway, I have more pocket money than I can spend. In this way, we not only completed the task assessment, but we also won't feel guilty. How much money do you have on you? Uchiha asked Sarutobi Enjun. The latter scratched his head and said, I don't know. I've been saving up since I entered the Ninja Academy. I haven't really counted the exact amount, but I brought over 1,000,000 taels of silver with me this time. Oh shit. The second-generation rich kid has enough pocket money to cover the reward for an S-rank mission. I'll have to find a way to rip this kid off a few times later. Then it's your decision. But Enjun, I hope you remember that this kind of thing must be done with the consent of all your teammates, especially on the battlefield in the future. Kindness and compassion are not essential qualities for a ninja. On the contrary, they may cause unnecessary trouble. Uchiha waved his hand and said, based on his analysis of Orochimaru's personality, this person is rather indifferent to ethics and morality. If he were to directly find the bandits and kill them all, it might fit Orochimaru's requirements. However, Uchiha understood his role better than anyone else. He needs to play the role of an Uchiha who can be influenced by the so-called will of fire. Being too calm and rational means that you are too independent and difficult to control, especially to the higher-ups in the Hokage lineage, led by the third Hokage. Orochimaru, as the third Hokage's prized disciple, is now aligned with the third Hokage. Since he was assigned to this team, he would inevitably be subjected to a comprehensive evaluation of himself as an Uchiha. Therefore, Uchiha Genji not only had to demonstrate that his qualifications and abilities were worthy of training, but he also had to make his personality and thoughts appear worthy of being nurtured. In this light, Sarutobi Enjun's personality seems to serve as a good lubricant, allowing one to use him as a justification to demonstrate the side that can be influenced by the will of fire. I believe the third Hokage would be very happy to see such a script, and would have even more faith in it. Moreover, although Uchiha never considered himself a good or kind person, he was, in his previous life, a normal person who had undergone more than 10 years of scientific knowledge and moral education. However, from the very first day he arrived in the ninja world, he knew how dangerous this world was, and therefore he worked hard to make himself more suitable for survival in this world. Who wouldn't want to live in a world without killing, death, or war? Unfortunately, this isn't the place. In fact, given the choice, Uchiha wouldn't mind doing good deeds and helping others. The premise is that there are choices available. Uchiha could see that Ruri Yuzuki, like himself, was trying to increase her chances of survival in this world. These ninjas from small ninja clans have always had a strong sense of crisis. On the contrary, Sarutobi Enjun has good talent and an extraordinary family background. His father was already the Hokage from birth. In Konoha, almost no one fits the definition of a celestial dragon better than him. Having always been the most protected by his elders, he never suppressed his youthful passion and sense of justice, nor did he learn how to think critically or become more cautious. If such a person doesn't have a suitable mentor to temper their character, their future fate won't be much different from that of the already deceased Nawaki. Even if they manage to grow into a relatively powerful ninja one day, thanks to their talent and the protection of their family, they will inevitably suffer a major setback on the battlefield sooner or later. If they manage to survive, it will be due to good luck. Perhaps the most unstable element in this team is Sarutobi Enjun, the crown prince of Konoha. Uchiha glanced at Enjun's Sarutobi, silently pondering the matter. That's why he needs to seize control of the conversation among the three as much as possible, so as to minimize the chances of the team being led astray. This mission presents a good opportunity. From now on, the team will act according to my instructions. Any objections? Gen Uchiha sized up his two teammates with his eyes. Ruri Yuzuki did not intend to stand up and fight for a voice. Whether in terms of ability or the influence of her family, she is significantly different from her two teammates. On the contrary, Sarutobi Enjun's strength was not much lower than his own, and he still had the aura of being the Hokage son. If he really acted impulsively and went his own way, he and Yuzuki Ruri might really be in trouble. There's no other way. The current Hokage son is in danger. So, are you going to save him or not?